So I watched Angie Jones live stream a automating session where she was automating this Tic Tac Toe game with Java and WebDriver. And I think it's really useful to see multiple approaches automating the same application because it gives you a feel for options, different approaches, and to see pretty much the similarity between different automating tools, because the more we see different programming languages, the more we get a feel for they're all relatively similar, and we lose a lot of fear in terms of programming. So I'm going to try and automate this, but I'm going to do something different and automate it in the browser itself. So the first thing we have to do when we're learning any application to automate it is look at the application itself. So here's the game. I've started playing it and I've inspected the important parts of the DOM just to get a feel for how this works. So I'm clicking on spaces. Let's click on the top left this time, which is this one. And we can see that there's a class underneath there, and I click on it and it has the X. So everything that we need is in the DOM. I don't need to access anything in memory when I'm going to automate this, which is useful. And so I click on it and we can see here that the board has an extra class, and down here there is a restart div over the top of this, which is currently display block, so we can display it. I click on that and it is display none. So I know that the game is essentially finished when the restart is displayed. So just to hone in on this with some CSS selectors, because we're going to need some of these. So I can find out restart. I can find that element in the DOM. So I'm just going to make a quick note of that. So I'm just going to make a quick note of that in my notes. This is the restart div overlay. And the board is the div board. I don't think I'll probably use that, but what I want is access to all the squares. So if I say div square, then I can access all the squares that are in there. So that's going to be useful to know. So now what I want to try and do is figure out, can I actually click on this? So if I pick div square, let's go into the console. In JavaScript, what I want to do is find the document and then find the selector. So I will say query selector. I'm going to say query selector all. So that's going to use a CSS query to return everything, and I want to return all the squares. So div.square, that returns a node list of 9. So now I have all the squares on the screen, right? So I can find these. So let's see if clicking on it works. So I'm going to pick all the squares and choose the one in the top left, and I'm going to issue a click event, and that doesn't work. So I can't click on the squares. So let me just inspect this and look at the event listeners. And I can see there's no event listener for the click, but there's one for mouse down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that first one, and I am going to dispatch an event to it. And it's going to be a new event, and it will be a mouse down event, mouse down. And there we go. So I can click on things using a mouse down event. That's good to know. Let me just take that and put it in our cheat sheet. So we've got div restart, div square, mouse down. What else will we need to do? So we'll need to be able to restart the game. So let me just get the game in a finished position. There we go. So board tie. So now if I do div restart, there we go. That's the full thing. So in the console, I'm just going to say document dot query selector just to return one value, and I want to return the element for the div restart. I'm going to try and issue a click on that. So that's how I can restart the game. There we go. I'm just making notes of all the kind of rough commands I'm going to need to do this. Now, one of the things that's probably useful is to know whether the game needs to restart or not. So in the here, what we've got is the style and it's the display. So I can access the display style, which is currently none. Play the game. And if I look at the display style now, it's block. So I can tell whether we need to restart the game or not based on the display style for the restart. Other things that would be useful to know is where have we got anything in here? So at the moment, there's one square selected. The current selector that I've got is all the squares. But I can't tell from that whether they're selected or not. What's interesting is that each one of these has a div underneath it, and that div has a class as to whether it's selected or not. So in here, if I do div dot square, and then I want the div underneath that, then there's 9 of those, and it's the hidden secret div under there. But what I want are the divs which do not have a class of X and which do not have a class of O. So there I've now selected all the selected squares, all the squares that don't have an X or a 0 in it. So there's 1 of 8 there. If I put an X in here and run this, now we've got 2 of 6. So there's 6 positions I could put in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now I've selected all the items which don't have something in it. That's going to be useful to know. So I can find them all. So I can't actually dispatch events there. Let's have a quick look at the dispatch event again. So the dispatch event is currently working on the top. So this is saying find all the squares, find the first square, dispatch an event. What I want to do is find the first square with a div directly below it, which does not have an X or a no in it, and that's what this does. But if I dispatch an event new mouse down to it, does this actually select it? So this will be this here sending a mouse down event. So that's sent the mouse down event, but it hasn't triggered in the system. So I could either, instead of send it directly to this div, I could send it to the parent element, which we've already seen will respond to that event, or I could send it to the div itself, but I would have to bubble up the event. So I have to say bubbles and then true. So let me just change this to 0. So it will always be the first one. And we're not sending it to the parent, we're sending it to the event itself. But bubbles means send it to this element and let it bubble up the chain. So it will eventually get sent to the parent. So I've got a choice. I can either do this or this to actually click on one of the squares that doesn't have something in it. Do I need to know anything else? That's probably good enough to start. So let's write a bot. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the snippets view and create a new snippet. I'll call this Tic Tac Toe, rename Tic Tac Toe, and I'll put this code on gist or something. So let me just make a note of where we're at. I'll get rid of this set of notes by putting them in my code. Alright, so now I've got everything I need pretty much to hand. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a bot that is simply just going to restart the game for me. So I need a function, and I'll call this play game. But to start with, all this is going to do is restart the game. So it will say if we need to restart, so if the restart, so let's say var restart, and this is checking the overlay div. So document query selector div restart gets the overlay div. Then I'll say if restart dot style display equals, and it was block or none. So if it equals block, then we need to restart the game. So I will say restart dot click, because this can take a click event. So if I now have nothing to run this function, what I can do is I can say var playbot, and that's going to equal window.setinterval, which means it's going to run this function play game every 500 milliseconds. And every time I create a bot, I like to make sure that I can stop the bot. So I'm going to say window.clear interval, because otherwise it would just run continually play bot. And I'm going to add that as a comment. So what we've got here is, let's see if it works. So run it, there's no syntax errors. If I play the game, now you see I'm not clicking again to restart the game, so I have something running in the background which is detecting that we need to restart the game, finding the restart thing and clicking on it. So I have a bot that is resetting the game for me. So let me just paste this into the console, and now that bot is stopped. So now I have to actually click to restart the game, right? So we've started writing a little bot here that can play the game. So the thing else here now is else I need to play the game. So basically I've got code that says if we need to restart, we can restart. Otherwise I need to play the game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take from my notes the code that says find all the things that are not selected. So we'll call this var squares. If I could spell, that would be good. And what this is doing, this is saying, so what this is saying is using this query selector, which remember finds everything that doesn't have an X or an O in it. So find all the squares that I can click on. Then what I need to be able to do is randomly choose one. So in JavaScript, say this returned 6. What I would want to do is math.floor, then math.random, which returns a value from 0 to 1, and then I want to times that by 9. So this should continually give me a random integer from inclusively 0 to 8. Math.floor turns the floating point into an integer. So now if I take this, now you can see what I do is I jump between the sources view where I'm writing JavaScript and the console where I'm typing things. So squares, instead of 9, I want squares dot length. Let's just double check. I'm pretty sure it's length. Console dot length. There we go. So I have found all the squares that don't have anything in it. I know how long it is, so this is going to be the var item. And then what I'll say is squares, and then the index is item, and then I want to send a click event to it. So we know how to do that. Let me just copy out the code. So I'm going to choose the parent element, then dispatch an event, mouse down. So this, in theory, should, hopefully, if I've done this right, iterate round play the game every 500 milliseconds. If there's a restart div on screen, click it to start the next game. If not, then find all the squares that have not been selected, randomly select one of them, then click on it to play the game. So that seems remarkably simple. Let's run this, see what happens. I've still got the clear interval bot. Okay, so now we've written a bot that will just keep playing the game. Now it's rubbish because it's randomly selecting stuff. And I think the game has some AI to actually play it better. But you can see that rather than a random selection of the square, if we had an algorithm in here to choose a square that made sense in the current layout, then we could have something that plays the game within the browser itself. So most of the time when I'm automating these type of systems is spent working out how can I make it do the things I want, what states am I using in the application itself to work with, then experimenting with code in the console. So I'll use the console to try things out, see if it works, then use the snippets to build up basic code to play the game. And there you go. So now we've automated Tic Tac Toe badly in terms of the algorithm in the browser. So if you found this useful, I have a course on automating in the browser using JavaScript at Test Automation U, which you can find at testautomationu.applitools.com. And I'll have links in the description or wherever you found this video to Angie's video, the Test Automation U course, and my website EvilTester.com. So make sure you subscribe to me on my mailing list at YouTube, wherever, right? If this is useful, hope it is. But we can do quite a lot of tactical automating within the browser to automate games and applications with very minor amounts of code once we know what we're doing.